So we've been asked by one of our subscribers, what games was it that got us into this gaming hobby?
I think I've talked about this before in other videos. I didn't used to play any board games. I one day went to a board game cafe because they were advertising a Switch meetup, and I love playing video games. So I went in to play Mario Kart with lots of strangers and had a brilliant time. This is not long after I'd moved to a new city, so I didn't know anyone there. I then messaged the host of the place and said, when are you going to do another one of those? And she said, well, it wasn't particularly popular, but why don't you come to our board game social? And like everyone who doesn't know about this wonderful hobby, I thought, I don't want to go and play Monopoly and Cluedo and Scrabble, that sounds boring. But I did, and I had a fantastic time.
Playing Monopoly?
Yeah, Monopoly was put away. At the socials, we mainly focused on kind of party games. So I played a lot of games like Obama Llama, we played a lot of games like Chameleon, those kind of party bluffy games, but that was kind of the environment of the social nights. And I went week after week for about 6 months, and while I was there I saw other people playing more sophisticated games, and I eventually just started joining those. By this point I joined some other board game groups, and one in London where they didn't play these party games. In that environment, what happened was a designer for a game would come along, bring some demo games, and then explain how to play them. So at this place particularly, I learned about Pandemic, and I think lots of people's kind of entryway into modern board gaming is Pandemic. And I also played a lot of Cult Express. And I remember thinking Cult Express was like nothing I'd ever imagined from board games, with its train on the table. And although it looks fun and accessible, it's actually surprisingly in-depth and complicated, especially when you're playing with sort of 4, 5 or 6 people and you're trying to remember what everyone's trying to do.
You need a good memory if there's a few players on that one, for sure.
So that's kind of where it all shifted. They were the first games I started playing, which made me mainly realise that, okay, these aren't just the board games that I've heard. These aren't some stuffy, boring games. These are kind of modern, and I could begin to see the video game elements that I really liked in these games. And by that point, that's kind of when we met, and then you started moving more and more towards increasingly complicated games and away from the party games. We still do play the party games. And that's how I ended up with, moving towards getting excited for Eclipse. So that's where it started, and that's where we are now.
Whereas I've always loved games, but I didn't really realise that there was this whole gaming world there. So even just having Star Wars Monopoly was exciting for me, just because it was new and different, and in a theme that I loved. Like, I really love a themed game, so just being able to put a theme on something like Monopoly made it more exciting, just because I love to play board games. I just didn't know about all of this. But we used to play a lot of card games in the pub and things. Some people would bring up Munchkin, or I'd had, at some point I had some dual decks from the Magic the Gathering cards and all sorts of bits and pieces like that. And then one of my friends started going to a board game club that was near her. Couldn't find one near me, but she was then coming back with all these ideas and suggestions of different games. This was about 2012 when the original version of Yedo came out, and she then promptly brought that one, and we would play that together. And that's, I think, the game that was just like, I absolutely love playing this. And it's fantastic. We'd played Pandemic as well, so as you said, Pandemic has sort of brought us into that different idea, and I think Pandemic was one of the ones that was the sort of first copy that I had myself of like a proper game. Yeah,
because obviously when we moved in together we consolidated our collection, so that's almost where you could see the shared entry points, because we both had a copy of Pandemic, we both had a copy of Villainous.
Yeah.
And we also both had a copy of Cards Against Humanity, so we have got that party
Everything
background.
has its time and place. But yeah, I think Yedo's the one that really sort of sparked the love of it about then. And then I would play with my friend lots of different things, some of the Red Raven games, as it came out a little bit later, Scythe. I sort of bypassed Catan, really. I think I played that with her once, maybe twice. I bypassed Carcassonne, which a lot of people would say that it was their entry-level game. We just went straight into the ones that had the themes and the feelings and the sort of feel that we thought we would gravitate to, rather than sort of having to step through the sort of, oh, this is an entry-level game and that's an entry-level game. We just went straight to the ones that sort of drew us in.
I think we've talked about it in the past. If there's a theme that grabs you, you're going to enjoy playing it much more than, this is a really easy game, but it's about farming in ancient Europe. You go,
and there is something to be said for fantastic mechanisms that work, but just for me, you know, I just really, it becomes a game I love if it's got a theme that I engage with.
Well, I think I was similar for Colt Express. I mean, I saw a cool train on the table and I thought, oh, I want to get in on that. If there wasn't the train there, I wouldn't have necessarily thought about joining it.
No, but I'm sort of the opposite, because I'm not massively into westerns and I'm not really into trains, and I think the game's great, but I don't love it because I don't engage with the westerny trainy theme, whereas
if it's a Firefly themed game, you'd be much more.
Put me on a spaceship and let's move around and punch people on the spaceship, and I'm loving that game a lot more. Maybe they should do a reskin.
So yeah, that was how we got into all of this.